Hey, it's me again. How's it going? It's been a minute. I told you that I was going to have a video out the end of last week, and I didn't. I just flat out didn't do it. So if you think about Sunday as kind of the end of the week, it still works. I'm still within that time frame there. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Hey. Oh, hello again. Oh, shoot. I didn't mean to do that. Hang on. Let's talk just a minute about the class before we get into Greece here. Do this. Okay. So we are in lesson 3 this week. Actually, last week we were in lesson 3, right? This week, starting tomorrow, is actually the Medea and Rome week, which I'm pretty excited for because Medea is awesome. But this video, we're going to talk about Greece and the Iliad. If I don't know, I haven't figured it. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to make one really long video or two. I'm probably making two. Probably. Let's just do Greece right now, and then Iliad can come tomorrow. Maybe. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see how we feel. Anyway, so. This past week, we were to read the creation of the Titans and the gods. We were to read Demeter and Persephone, and we were to read the Iliad. Now, if you notice, the Iliad is a little on the longer side, right? It's one of the longer ones that we read. This week and next week, and the week after that, yeah, Beowulf is... How long is Beowulf? How long is Beowulf? 25? No, that's 35. Shoot. Anyway, so the next two weeks or so, you have some longer things to read, but they're also more interesting. So that's cool. Get some interesting things. My cat is here again. Say hello. Hi. Okay. I don't know. She likes to lay right in front of me as I'm trying to type. Like I have to bend my arms around her to reach the keyboard. But it's fine. I don't care. All right, so our PowerPoint presentations are here on Moodle as always, and then the quiz here. Again, due in 1 week, a week and a half, whatever. Let's do the 21st. Do the 21st. So we have a little bit of time. If you are a little behind in your reading because of power problems or internet problems, you have a few days to catch up. But in the meantime, for now. Cat, you gotta move. I'm sorry. I can't have you right there. You gotta move. But for now, okay, I'm trying not to look down so much so that you don't have to stare at my startlingly bald head. My disturbingly lack of hair. I don't want that to freak you out, so I'm gonna try to keep from looking down as much as I can. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Creation of the Titans and the gods. All right, so let's talk about Greece. Let's talk about Greece for a minute. I'm getting the hang of this, figuring this out. All right, so here we are. Ancient Greece. This is how ancient Greece looked. 8th or 6th century BCE to the end of antiquity, around 680. So it was a pretty long civilization. We can see Athens is here, Thebes is here, Delphi is here, Mount Olympus is way up here, Troy is over here. We'll talk about that when we get to the Iliad, and Abydos. That's another Abydos. Look at that. There was an Abydos in Egypt last week. And there's another Abydos there. Crete's down here, Sparta, Olympia. Anyway, lots of things. So here are some examples of wardrobe that people wore back in the day. Very loose, very billowy. It's a very famous painting, The Birth of Venus by Botticelli, Sandro Botticelli. Venus, Aphrodite, same person. We'll be talking about her. Here's a very famous blue roofs in Greece. I'm sure you've seen this picture. And then there's a statue of Athena in Vienna. Very nice statue. Okay, I'm going to have to skip some of this stuff because we have a lot to get through. So I'm going to skip the periods as the Parthenon. All right. Athena was the saint, the patron, not the saint, the patron or the guardian of Athens there. So the Parthenon was dedicated to her. And then Greece as it looks today. We still have Athens here, but some of the names are a little different. 1828 is when it was recognized as its own country. The modern version of it, anyway. Okay. This is the School of Athens by Raphael, a very famous painting. So interesting things about the Greek religion, the Greek myths. They had no sacred texts. They had no, scripture to refer to. They had no official creeds or doctrines that articulated the official beliefs in their gods. And they didn't even have regularly trained practitioners of that faith. They didn't have priests or clergymen or rabbis or disciples or whatever. It was just ordinary individuals, regular people who would perform the rites and sacrifices. The Greeks responded to the numinous meaning the perceived experience of divine or sacred forces, so that perception that there's something else going on, there's something bigger going on around us and with us that they would respond to, that they would, that sense of that mystical supernatural force that they would attribute to the gods themselves here. The Greek gods they were not omniscient. They didn't have unlimited knowledge. They couldn't look into other gods' heads. And like the Mesopotamian gods, they were anthropomorphic, so they had human form, right? Had human form. And we have polytheistic and pantheistic religion here. We haven't talked about that. If it was in class, I would have talked about that. But there are a few major ideas about gods that we have to focus on. There's monotheism, which is one god, only one god. There's polytheism, which is many gods, and there's pantheism or animism, which is everything is God, right? Everything is supernatural, everything is divine. It's all in one consciousness, essentially. Yeah, here we go. So polytheism, pantheism, theogony, an account of, okay. We don't need to know all of these here. There's Poseidon with his trident. Okay, here's the short version of the Greek family tree. It took me a long time to find this condensed version, and look how easy and simple and quick to read it is. No. Here is the shorter version that we can use. All these other people, whatever. We don't care about those people. We don't have time. Don't have time for those people. But we have Kronos and Rhea originally, and then they had several children there after there. Hestia, Hades, Zeus. Yeah, that's right. And then Zeus and Hera had more children after that. Athena, Persephone is down here with Demeter, Hephaestus, Ares, so on and so forth. Okay, so there were several generations of gods in Greece. And starting with Kronos and Chaos, we have kind of the upper echelon, the top level. So we have Tartarus, ruler of the underworld, Eros, love, Uranus is son and husband of Gaia, ruler of the sky. So these are the primordial gods, right? When we're thinking about think about Enuma Elish, think about Egypt, think about the other one. Why can't I? The universe in Ife. The creation of the universe in Ife, where at the beginning there was either like a formless water or kind of a nothing chaos to begin with. All right, so we had chaos here, original emptiness. Egypt was the very same way, where there was just original nothingness. There was no form, there's no shapes, it was all a void. And then the gods kind of crafted existence out of that, right? So here in this image here, we have Kronos being dismembered by Uranus. The problem with So why is Uranus dismembering Kronos here? Let's see, where is it? Yeah. Okay, so see, I think we talk about that a little bit later. I'll get to that in a second, but eventually we'll learn why he has a scythe and why he has pointed it at a specific part of Kronos' body there. Gaia was the first mother goddess, Mother Earth. Her name derives from Ge and Aya, meaning Earth Grandmother, Earth Mother. Right, so she was Mother Nature, essentially. She was the concept of the great nourishing, the great providing mother to the gods. This is Saturn, or Kronos and Saturn are the same thing. Kronos was the Greek name, Saturn was his Roman name. But we had 100-handed giants, we have Cyclopses, Cyclopes, Kronos and Rhea. So these are the second generation after Uranus, after gosh, I'm not doing good with names today. After Gaia, after Eros. Yeah, of course, Eros, yeah. This is a very famous painting by Goya, Saturn devouring his son. So in this myth, the reading that we have here is not quite as explicit or as brutal as this picture here is, but Kronos is, consuming his children. He's swallowing them out of fear. And then we have the Titans. Right, Helios, Selene, god of the moon, goddess of the moon. Themis, goddess of prophecy. Mnemosyne is really interesting. The word mnemonic comes from her name, Mnemosyne, mother of muses, god of memory. Metis, wisdom and knowledge, so on and so forth. And then this up here, I talked about this before, but in the poem, the raven flies in and lands on a bust of Pallas, Pallas, which is just another name for Athena. All right, so that's her statue up there with the helmet kind of pushed up on her head like that. It's the classic picture of her. Have we heard of the Pythia or the Oracle at Delphi? So this was the most powerful woman in the Greek world. She was the most important woman in the Greek world because she communicated messages directly from the gods themselves. Located in Mount Parnassus, she could foretell the future, being filled with the spirit of Apollo. And her name refers to I didn't really talk about that, but the monstrous python after it was slain by Apollo. And at the time, it was fascinating. It was amazing and a little terrifying that this oracle, this priestess, could speak directly from the gods. She could communicate directly through them. They could communicate directly through her. It made her very important, very, very terrifying, very powerful. But modern day researchers have maybe a different idea of why she was able to come up with those visions. Where she was sitting, her palace, her throne was positioned over an open natural vent in the mountain, and vapors from natural hot springs were pluming up through her chamber and maybe causing her to hallucinate just a little bit. Could have been messages from the gods. She could have been high out of her mind. One of those two things, most likely one of those two things was really what was going on. And then the muses. All of these gods are just to give you a quick introduction. I mean, you read about them in the myths themselves, but Calliope, poetry. Erato is erotic poetry. Melopone is tragedy. Terpsichore is dance. Urania is astronomy. So these were all disciples of Apollo himself. It's him in the middle. But if you'll notice, a lot of older literature has something in it called invoking the muse. Right at the very beginning, Milton does this. I think Virgil does this. Shakespeare does this. Some of our myths in this book does this. At the very beginning, the author will say, I'm about to set out to write this grand thing. Please, muses, fill me with inspiration. Right. The idea was that great literature, great stories, and myths like this were not created from the writer themselves, but rather gifted from the gods. The gods would bless us with these things, and then we would just repeat them to each other, invoking the muse. Okay, so here's our first myth here. It's not very long, right? It's only, what is it? 5 pages. But it's pretty eventful. A lot of things going on in here. Let's see. So the first 3 gods to emerge. I don't like this. I don't like some of these questions. I need to change some of these questions. So the first 3 gods to emerge were Gaia and Tartarus and Eros. So we have Earth, we have the underworld, and we have love. And I thought it was interesting that love was one of the original 3. I thought being so important to be one of the original 3 was interesting to me. No, I don't like these. I should have redone these. I don't like these questions. Okay, this is a good question. So which of the Titans agrees to punish Uranus for his treatment of his original children? Right? So what is Uranus doing? Uranus has been given a prophecy. Let's read this here. I'm not looking down. Not looking down. I'm going to read it over here. Where is the prophecy? Yep. Uranus feared the terrible strength of these 6 children, the 100-handed giants and the Cyclopses. Well, I guess the Cyclopses. No, both of them. And he hated them because they terrified him. So as each child was born, he took them from his mother, bound them, and hurled them deep into Gaia's being, the earth. So he threw them down into the underworld. And eventually, some of his children were revolting against him for that, right? Let's see here. So after the Cyclopses and the 100-handed giants, we have the 13 Titans. Let's see, I'm looking for specific lines here. This is important. Prometheus, the most intelligent and clever Titan, created mortal man out of clay and water. So now we have the creation of human beings made by a god, but they're using natural elements, clay and water. Again. All right. So eventually, some other of Uranus's children, Kronos specifically, decides to listen to his mother. His mother Gaia is really upset with how Kronos is treating the children. So, well, Uranus is treating the children. So Kronos agrees to get revenge, right? And how does he do that? Almost all of Gaia's sons were so terrified of Uranus that they listened to her command in silence and refused to obey her. But Kronos, the youngest Titan, was very similar to his father in temperament, and he was much more courageous than his brothers. If no one else will help you, mother, I certainly will. If our father has been cruel to you and to our brothers, we shall take revenge. So, what does he do? Kronos, he has a huge stone sickle, and he emasculates his father. So he cuts off the prize and the cash and prizes. He cuts off the twig and berries, and he throws them into the ocean, right? And when they hit the ocean, they start to bubble and foam into the ocean, and out of that foam comes a goddess, Aphrodite, right? The foam-born goddess. That's why she's called that. So the goddess of love is created from the ocean in that way. But even after all that, even after Uranus treated his children so poorly and Kronos got revenge on him, eventually Kronos realizes that he's in the same situation. He's terrified of his own children, that they will one day grow up and replace him, right? He will grow old, they will grow strong, and they will kick him off the throne, and he doesn't want that to happen. So he starts eating his children, right? Starts eating his children. If we go back to this picture, Kronos eating his children. So Kronos became god of the sky as his father had been before him. Like his father, he feared the 100-handed giants and the Cyclops. So he ignored his promise to Gaia and kept his brothers bound and imprisoned in Tartarus. And then Gaia being the goddess of prophecy, informed him that one day a son would overpower him, just as he had overpowered his own father. And Kronos says, nah, no, I'm not letting that happen. Not letting that happen. So, the words of his fate screamed inside his head. So when Rhea produced their baby daughter, he snatched her, opened his gigantic mouth, and swallowed her in one gulp. So he does this to try to cheat the fates. He says, well, if I just eat my children, then they can't grow up and overthrow me. Right? Makes sense? Well, it works until Zeus comes along. And Rhea, Kronos' wife, is able to hide Zeus away. What she does is she substitutes a boulder instead of the baby. So when Kronos devours the boulder, he thinks he's devouring Zeus, and he's not. All right. Years passed, Zeus became a mature god, and one day there's a confrontation. Let's see here. What's our confrontation? Kronos had swallowed a drink. So Rhea had made a delicious drink. Really, what it was a magic potion, and the purpose of it was for him to regurgitate those children that he had swallowed. So Kronos felt an excruciating pain in his stomach. He vomited up the rock, followed by Poseidon, Hades, Hera, Demeter, and Hestia, all of whom were fully grown by now, because, of course, gods, whatever. So Rhea says, your destiny is upon you, Kronos. The fates prophesied the son would overpower you just as you overpowered your own father. And Kronos does this. I'm sorry, Zeus does this. Zeus does this, along with his brothers. So Zeus and his brothers and sisters waged war against Kronos and the Titans who allied themselves with him. And eventually, Zeus is victorious. Zeus even goes down to free the 100 giants and the Cyclopses from Tartarus. So this is interesting, this escaping of the fate here. I always like to think about Macbeth when I read this question. Because Kronos thought he had escaped his fate. There was a prophecy made about him, and he thought, well, I can get around that, no problem. I'll just start eating my children, because, of course, that makes sense. And he thought that he got away from that. He thought he solved the problem. He didn't. He didn't get away from it, because you can't. You can't get away from prophecy. You can't get away from fate. That's one reason I'm not a big fan of prophecies or destiny in my fiction stories, because it's boring. Like, you're telling us what's going to happen, and then all these characters are, I can get away from it. I can go this other way, and in the end you realize, oh no, you couldn't get away from it after all. It was always going to. Okay, well, that's predictable. All right. Anyway, what am I talking about? Oh, what part of the myth reinforces this? So Kronos, thinking he can get away from his fate, turns out he can't. Right? There's always some twist that makes him fall for it. Same thing happened in Macbeth. When Macbeth was given the prophecy that no man or woman born would be able to slay him, he thought, well, that's great. I'll never die. I can never be killed because everyone is born of a woman. Well, no, because there's this little twist. He wasn't born of it. He was ripped from his mother's womb before he was born, so that doesn't count. Okay. Anyway. Each of the three male gods were assigned domains. Zeus received the sky, Poseidon received the ocean, and Hades received the underworld. Now, you might think that Hades was punished in some way for receiving the underworld, but this is not. The underworld that Hades ruled was not the realm of eternal damnation and torment. That was Tartarus, right? That was Tartarus. The underworld that Hades had was a little more like purgatory. It was more like a waiting room. It was a chance to redeem some of the bad things that you've done. And, well, two more things. One, they were each given a prize, right, from the Cyclops and the 100 giants. Zeus was given the lightning bolt. Hang on, where is that? I can't look down. It's right here. Where Where is it? I don't. It's right here somewhere. Zeus taught human beings how to be just in the treatment of one another. Poseidon can use his trident to cause earthquakes. So Poseidon got the trident. Hades had a helm that made him invisible. All right, so they each taught some things to humans. How to treat each other. How to ride horses. I think Poseidon was, how to build ships. How to tame horses. Hades taught them how to have respect for the dead by conducting proper funeral rites. No, I don't like that question. And then we skipped it. We didn't do Ages of Man. Hold on. This is not the right... That wasn't even the right thing. Hang on. Where are we? It's almost the right thing. We were here. Okay. Here we go. Okay. So anyway, it's not a very long myth, but it's pretty interesting. It talks about a couple generations of gods. It talks about fate. It talks about you can't escape that fate. And then a little bit of an interesting battle between Zeus and Kronos. But I don't know. It's all right. It's not that long. Demeter and Persephone is a little more interesting here. But let's talk about, let's skip quickly through these gods because there's a lot of them. So Zeus is the son of Kronos who overthrew him eventually. Youngest son of Rhea and Kronos. He rules the sky with a lightning bolt and he maintains order in the world of mortals. Poseidon, his brother, rules the seas, also earthquakes and horses, and has the trident there. We get to Indian mythology, Hindu mythology, and Shiva as well has a trident like that. But Shiva doesn't rule the oceans. Hades, the other brother, rules the underworld, possesses the helmet of invisibility. I don't know what this whole thing is here. Prometheus, so this is the one, remember, I just mentioned it. Prometheus created humans. The most intelligent and clever Titan. His brother Epimetheus married Pandora, the first mortal woman. We'll talk about Pandora in a second. He was a trickster. He's a trickster god. He tricked Zeus into accepting lesser sacrifice. He stole fire from heaven, gave it to humans. And because of these tricks, because of Zeus didn't like him, he wouldn't help out Zeus when Zeus wanted. And so Zeus punished him by chaining him to a mountainside and sending an eagle to peck out his liver every day, which it would grow back because he's a god. Right? He won't die, but he can't really get away either. So he's just stuck there being pecked at by an eagle every day for 30,000 years until Heracles rescues him. I'm a little disappointed we don't get to read about Heracles this semester. We just don't have time. Epimetheus is his brother here. Name means afterthought. I thought that was interesting. Attributed with creating animals and brought knowledge to humans of our dependency on each other, sharing, caring, all those nice fuzzy feelings. Bears that wave hello, I guess. And then Pandora, her name means all gifts. She had to give a certain box that she wasn't supposed to open. I'm sure we've all heard of Pandora's box. And she did, because obviously if you have a big red button that says, don't push me, eventually you're going to push that button. She does, and all the evils and all the bad things come out of the box and fill the world, and the only thing left is hope. We always have hope. Last little thing remaining. There's so many. Okay, I can't go through all of these. There's a lot of gods here. Zeus and Hera, and then he falls down. Yeah. So Zeus and Hera are husband and wife, but they didn't get along too often because Zeus was like Ben Franklin, right? Zeus had a fondness for the female. He was a fan of the ladies, and he tried to spend as much time with as many different ladies as he could. And Hera, his wife, obviously wasn't a fan of that. Going so far as to try to murder his illegitimate children. She tries to murder Heracles more than once. Let's see. Let's skip Hestia. Hades. We already talked about Hades. No, we have to keep going. We don't have time for this. All right, Demeter and Persephone. So Demeter was goddess of the moon, agriculture, fertility, sister of Zeus, and mother of Persephone. Persephone is queen of the underworld. She didn't start out that way, but she ended up that way. And wife of Hades. And she was just a joyful person. She brought joy to people around her, right? Athena, goddess of wisdom and war. Goddess of strategy more, really. Ares was the god of war, like the brutality. But Athena was more the goddess of planning and strategy and war. And then look at these little babies, Artemis and Apollo, the twins. And then Hermes with no pants. Messenger. God of a lot of things. Travel, dreams, eloquence, writing, persuasion, astronomy, all those things. And then names, right? So this is interesting. A lot of the Greek gods are almost identical to the Roman gods. They just have different names. Zeus and Jupiter are the same person. Hera and Juno are the same person. Poseidon and Neptune, Hades and Pluto, Demeter and Ceres, Athena and Minerva, Dionysus and Bacchus. That's the god of party. It's the god of wine and merriment. I like that guy. God of partying. Okay, so Demeter and Persephone. Again, not a very long one, but it's pretty interesting. So this would be Cupid or Eros, god of love. So Zeus, this is interesting. So what happens in this myth? Demeter and Persephone are having their normal life, going about it, not thinking about anything wrong. And Aphrodite gets it into her little head that the other gods don't love her enough. They don't respect love enough. They don't cherish her enough. They don't tell her how beautiful and awesome she is all the time. And so she's jealous. And in order to make them respect her a little more, she casts a spell on Hades and makes Hades fall in love with Persephone. He sees Persephone frolicking through the flowers and says, wow, she's gorgeous. I want to marry her. And so Hades goes to Zeus and Hades says, hey, I want to marry your daughter Persephone. One of your many daughters. And Zeus says, okay. What am I going to say? And I thought that was interesting because for a lot of people, Zeus is thought of as like the king of kings, like the god of gods. He's the supreme god, the ruler of all the other gods. And here he is basically telling Hades, you do what you want to do, man. I'm not going to say nothing to you. And I thought that was interesting. But then I was thinking, their relationship is a sibling relationship, right? When rule of the different domains, the sky and the sea and the underworld, were handed out, it wasn't Zeus who was ruler, assigning those domains to the other gods. It was those three brothers pretty much on equal footing. So it makes sense to me that Zeus feels like he doesn't really have a place to deny Hades what he wants. That Hades is every bit as important as Zeus is in this context. So this was interesting here. So this part of the paragraph, the very beginning of the myth, it told me how much the humans loved their gods, respected their gods, cherished their gods. And what they did was, their farmers' wives set an extra place at their table in the hope that Demeter would knock upon their door and join them for their evening meal. They even set out an extra place at the table just in case one of the gods came by. So Aphrodite sends her son Eros, different Eros, not the original primordial god Eros, but son of Aphrodite, to hypnotize Hades. She does this because just people are not liking her enough. Listen, she says, what'd she say? Hang on. I don't like making you sit there and watch me look through a book, but few of the immortals have a high regard for our powers. She's talking to Eros, her son. Notice how Athena, Artemis, and Persephone all shun the idea of love. Zeus and his brother, the Lord of the Sea, have been subjugated to our weapons, and it is time for us to rule the Dark Lord of the underworld as well. So she's a little bit power mad, right? She says, well, if I don't have everyone under my spell, then that's not right. So she does that. She thinks she needs to get Hades under her spell as well. Hades doesn't really have a choice, right? He's seduced by Aphrodite. She casts a spell on him, and he just has to go along with it. Okay. Again, if I was in class with you, I would ask you this. But this picture here depicts something from the myth. At the end of the myth, when Persephone is returning to Demeter, this is the very end. So it looks like everything is peachy keen, and she's able to come back and live with her mom and not have to live in the underworld anymore. But we know it's not that easy. So, natural disaster. So what happens? Now remember, Demeter is the goddess of fertility and nature and rebirth and the seasons and all those things. So when Persephone goes missing, Demeter does not take it very well. She punished Sicily first. She broke the plows, she killed the oxen and the farmers who owned them. She commanded the earth to shrivel and mold the seeds it harbored. So she just stopped nature. She stopped nature from renewing, from growing. Animals that had been pregnant couldn't give birth. Animals that had already given birth wouldn't make milk anymore. It's just everything grinds to a halt, and people can't live like that. People need the world to keep producing life. So even Zeus even says so. He says, I share your love and your concern for our daughter. However, Hades seized Persephone because he loves her, and he is as great a god as I am. This is Zeus talking. Only the drawing of lots gave the underworld to him and Olympus to me. If our brother's love and power cannot make you put aside your anger and resentment, then I will let Persephone return to you, as long as she has eaten no food in Hades' dark kingdom. What? There's a catch? There's a contingency? Uh-oh. That's fine. It's probably fine. She probably didn't eat anything, right? Nothing. She didn't eat nothing. It's fine. Skip that. I think that's the last of my questions. Yeah, whatever. I'll skip those questions. So, eventually, yes, Hades allows Persephone to return to the surface, return to the living world, as long as she hasn't eaten any food in the underworld. But I think she did. Yep. Where is it? Ah, there it is. I have come from Mount Olympus, Rhea continued. I will bring you a special message from your brother Zeus. He wishes you to rejoin the Olympian family, where you will be highly honored among the deathless gods. This is Rhea. Zeus's mother. He gives you his word that Persephone need spend only 1/3 of each year in Hades' dark and gloomy kingdom. My child, tell me truly, when you were in the Lord Hades' dark kingdom, did you taste any food? This is Demeter talking to Persephone now. If you ate nothing there, you can live here where the sun shines with your father and me. But if you had any kind of nourishment, you must return to your husband, for the fates have decreed that anyone who eats the food of the dead must remain in the dismal land of death. And Persephone cries and says, my husband gave me a honey-sweet pomegranate seed to eat, and I ate it. So, what happens? This myth is explaining the seasons, right? This myth describes why the seasons happen every year. We're in spring and summer, and Persephone is here on Earth, and everything is fine and wonderful and warm and flowery and green. And then in the fall and the winter, she returns to the underworld, and because she's gone, Demeter becomes very depressed and sad and the world goes to sleep, essentially. Like the winter sets in and the green goes away because Demeter is upset. So just like in the Egyptian myth, when we talked about the 365 days and how that came about, with Thoth taking light from Moon a little bit each game to create new days, to create 365 days, now we have a myth explaining what seasons are and why they happen. Right? I like that. How are we doing on time? 40 minutes. Okay, you know what? I'm doing it. We're doing it. Okay. All right. So this is going to be, let's see what we can do. Oh my gosh. Look, do you realize that the historical background, the introduction, just the historical background for this myth is 18 pages long. The Iliad is a pretty important story, you guys. All right. So, the two great epics we talk about in Greece are the Iliad and the Odyssey. Both were written by Homer. Homer was a blind poet. He was a rhapsode. He was a troubadour, a bard. He was a traveling storyteller, essentially. The two great epics that we have, the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad talks more about the war itself for Troy, involving Agamemnon, Achilles, Paris, and Hector. And the Odyssey happens after the fall of Troy, when Odysseus is trying to return to Greece and gets kind of turned around along the way. That's not the right Homer. It's a different Homer. It's that guy. That's a representation, right? We don't exactly know what he looked like. We don't have photographs of the guy, but we have an idea, kind of a rough estimate of what he looked like there. The Trojan War is set around 1180 BCE in the late Bronze Age. The Troy that we talk about is likely the sixth of 9 historic cities built on the same site. So think about that. At this place, do I have a map? I should have a map here pretty soon. Shoot, where's my map? Okay, we'll find a map later. But the location of this city is very strategic. It's very important based on where it is because it controls a strait. It controls a water passage between the Mediterranean Sea and the Black Sea? I think the Black Sea. So it's a very valued land. It's very valuable. And because of that, there's been many, many wars fought over that spot. So much so that there have been 9 separate cities built and then destroyed on the same place. And the Troy that we're talking about here is likely the 6th of those 9. Heinrich Schliemann is credited with discovering the exact location in 1873. It's kind of an artist representation of it. The Library of Alexandria in Egypt was one of the largest and most significant in the ancient world. It was tragically burned, but it's not exactly known when or who started the fire or how. And a lot of ancient literature was lost in that fire. It was just devastating. But one of the things that survived is this story, the Iliad. There were other accounts of the Trojan War, but this Iliad is the most complete and well-known account of that we still have. So what does an epic poem do? An epic poem, first of all, what considered to be an epic poem is of considerable length. It's very long. It's told in elevated language, very flowery, fancy language, a lot of repetition. That repetition served 2 purposes. 1, it helped the storyteller remember the story. And 2, it helped the listeners remember what happened in the story. If you keep repeating the same thing over and over again and keep telling it over and again in different words and keep repeating the same thing over and over again and telling the same thing over in different words, it's more likely that the listeners will remember what you said. It provides listeners with heroic models of behavior. Hector in this myth is very heroic and admirable. It keeps alive the heroic past. It was a way of passing down history to the next generation and cultural values and things like that. So rhapsodes, Homer was a rhapsode. He wasn't the only one, but they were professionally trained poets who traveled around and recited these long epic poems to their audiences. It could last many hours. I mean, these things were not short. So being able to memorize and then repeat these things is very impressive. Calliope, one of the muses from the Greece presentation, Calliope, the muse of epic poetry. So we would invoke the muse. Okay. Here's exactly what I was talking about. Chapter 1 of the Iliad, all right? Very first line, chapter 1. Sing, goddess, of the time when wide-ruling Agamemnon and godlike Achilles parted in anger. Sing, goddess, right? Goddess, Calliope, the muse, sing to me. Tell me the story. Put it in my head as inspiration so that I can write it down on this paper and tell these people. Sing, goddess. Oh, here you go. Sing, goddess, in the Odyssey. Tell me, O muse, of that ingenious hero who traveled far and wide after he sacked the famous town of Troy. Right? We're invoking the muse here. Some other famous rhapsodes. Shakespeare is considered to be one. Homer was one. Hesiod was one. There was another myth, The Ages of Man, that we were going to read, but we didn't have time for that. But Hesiod wrote that as well. Okay, so about some of the characters here, some of the main characters. Very simple family tree. Tantalus and Pelops, down to Thyestes and Atreus, Menelaus and Agamemnon. Those are some characters that we're dealing with directly here. These are kind of previous family members. But Agamemnon and Menelaus are pretty major in this myth. So, a really short history lesson about the family. Tantalus killed and served his son Pelops to the gods. So Tantalus up here killed his son Pelops and fed him to the gods. Atreus and Thyestes killed their half-brother. So we have Atreus and Thyestes killed their half-brother. Thyestes was Atreus' wife's lover. Okay, so there was some crossover there. Atreus killed and cooked Thyestes' son. And Thyestes fathered a child, Aegisthus, with his own daughter, who abandoned the child. These were not good people, right? Who is this? This is a goddess of the hunt, twin sister to Apollo, Artemis. Oh, I guess it says right there. Artemis. This is Artemis. More about the family. Aegisthus was raised by Atreus, who did not know this was his nephew. Atreus fathered Menelaus and Agamemnon. So Atreus was the father of, Menelaus and Agamemnon here. Aegisthus learned of his background and killed Atreus. So, where are we? Aegisthus learned about how he came to be and killed Atreus here, his uncle. Agamemnon killed his deer sacred to Artemis. That is the reason why, at the beginning of this myth, Agamemnon has to make a deal with the gods in order to get to Troy in the first place. Because he has offended Artemis, she has stopped the winds from blowing, and Agamemnon's ships can't leave the harbor. They can't make it to Troy without wind. And so in order to make up for that, Artemis demands that Agamemnon sacrifice his daughter Iphigenia to the gods in order to restart the wind, which he agrees to do, but at the last second, Artemis swoops in and swaps out Iphigenia with a deer, so she won't be sacrificed, she won't be killed in that way. And then finally, Agamemnon went off to war with his brother Menelaus. Agamemnon stole Achilles' prize of honor, Briseis. Clytemnestra, Agamemnon's wife, took Aegisthus as a lover. And then when they came back, Clytemnestra and Aegisthus murdered Agamemnon. Just a whole bunch of backstabbing and murder and incest and I don't know. I'm sure there's like some killing of puppies or something in there. Whatever. Bad people. These are just not good people that we're dealing with here. All right, let's talk about the Greeks. So we have two sides here, right? We have the Greeks and we have the Trojans. So the main characters on the Greek side are Achilles, Menelaus, king of Sparta. So we can find Sparta down here. Sparta is right there. Agamemnon is king of Mycenae, which is right next to it over here. Odysseus, king of Ithaca, is up here. Nestor is king of Pylos. Pylos is over here. A lot of places around here. Patroclus is friend to Achilles, and Ajax is as a fierce warrior. We don't talk much about Ajax here, but Achilles is our main dude on the Greek side. Him and Menelaus and Agamemnon. And then the women of the Greek side, Helen is the wife of Menelaus, taken by Paris. So if you want, I mean, there's lots of reasons why this war started. There's lots of mythological reasons, there's historical reasons. But as far as our myth goes, the main reason this whole thing started was Helen. The gods kind of interfered with people again because they get bored, and they made a deal with Paris on the Trojan side that they would give him Helen. So what they did, they swept Helen away from her husband Menelaus and gave her to Paris. And that started the war. So now the Greeks, led by Menelaus and Agamemnon, have to go to Troy and retrieve Helen from them. Clytemnestra is a wife of Agamemnon. Remember, Agamemnon was the king of Mycenae down here. Agamemnon was the one who had to sacrifice his daughter Iphigenia to make the winds blow. So angered by her husband's eagerness to go to war, she takes a lover and kills Agamemnon upon his return. That is Aegisthus. And then Penelope, wife of Odysseus. This is Penelope here. Very patient and devoted wife. She waits 20 years for her husband to return from the war and refuses to remarry during that time. These are all suitors trying to take her hand in marriage, and she refuses each one of them. All right, so now we get to the Trojan side. So those were the Greeks, now we have the Trojans. So this is Hector, this is Paris, and this is Helen here. So Priam is the king of Troy, Hecuba is his wife. Paris is one of the sons of Priam and Hecuba. He's considered to be the cowardly warrior here, right? He is the abductor of Helen. It's his fault, kind of his fault, that the whole war started in the first place. Hector is his brother. He's a much more noble and honorable warrior. He fights to protect Troy from the Greeks. Andromache is Hector's wife, and the Cassandra is their sister, Hector and Paris. And Cassandra has a pretty interesting curse on her. Yeah, listen to this. Priam's daughter Cassandra, to whom Apollo had given the gift of prophecy, announced that this young man was in fact the son they had thought. Where is it? No, hang on. So she has the gift of prophecy. Where is it? There's a curse on her. I'm looking down, aren't I can't do that. Where does it talk about the curse? Shoot. Anyway, okay, so she has a curse on her. So she can tell the future. She can see the future, but the problem is no one believes her. No one believes when she tells them what the future is, and so they keep doing the wrong thing because they don't listen to her. That sucks. So who's on whose side here? We have the Greeks and the Trojans. These are the gods, right? So even the gods take sides in this here. We have Athena, Hera, Poseidon, and Hermes. Hermes being the messenger god with little wings on his feet. On the Greek side. And then the Trojan side, we have Aphrodite, Apollo, Ares, Artemis, and Zeus. So pretty evenly matched there. You have a Poseidon over here. You have Zeus over here. You know, Ares and Athena. Pretty good breakdown there. Some themes in the myth. So this, again, I would ask you, what is this from myth? What is this depicting? This is after the battle between Achilles and Hector. This is after Achilles slays Hector, and he is dragging Hector's corpse around the city of Troy as a show of domination and conquest and strength. So we have a theme of fighting over women. We have a role of the warrior. Fate is in there. Honor is in there. Right? Okay, so Homeric similes. I like these things. Epic similes. We know what a simile is. A simile is the moon is like an orange, right? This is like this, or this is as this. You're comparing two things using like or as. We know what similes are. Homeric similes are a little more involved, right? It's a detailed comparison in the form of a simile that is many lines in length. There are several in this myth, and I think they're pretty fascinating. So here's a few simple similes. As crazy as a fox, as quiet as a mouse, as handsome as a mythology instructor. Here's a Homeric simile. Just as farmers and their dogs force a lion out of the cattle pen just so the wild beast cannot capture the fattest of the herd, and they remain on watch throughout the entire night, and when the lion returns, skillful hands send arrows and dreadful flaming torches to frighten it away, until with the coming of rosy-fingered dawn, the lion finally retreats in anger. So the Trojans sent the Greeks back across the plain toward their hollow ship. Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. Just to say that the Trojans made the Greeks retreat. The Greeks retreated. That's what this says. The Greeks retreated. No. Talking about lions and dawn and rosy fingers and torches. Some good stuff. Okay. So some specific questions here. Some prophecies. There are some prophecies here. There's some prophecies and there are some false prophecies. I think the false prophecies are pretty interesting. Agamemnon himself is given some false prophecies that lead him to extend the battle, to keep fighting when he probably really shouldn't, right? He really shouldn't. This is a bad idea for him. So, okay, so here's how it all started. There was a golden apple. There was like the goddess of discord. The goddess of discord, Eris. She wasn't invited to a wedding. There was a wedding and she didn't get invited. So she says, she took a golden apple, threw it into the hallway, and announced that it was a gift for the most beautiful goddess. Uh-oh. And we have some competition. And we have some what's the word? Oh no. The arrogance. We have some big heads. We have some big heads. And the three women who are competing for this apple are Hera and Athena and Aphrodite. And where's Paris? I know Paris comes in here. Okay. So they asked Zeus to decide which of them was the most beautiful, and he refused because he's a smart man. And so he ordered Hermes to take the golden apple and give it to Paris, who was herding sheep on Mount Ida. And each of the goddesses offered Paris something, right? So listen to this. Hera said, "If you give the apple to me, I will give you extraordinary wealth and make you the ruler over all mortals." It's a pretty good deal. Athena said, "If you give the apple to me, I will make you the bravest and wisest of mortal men, victorious in war and skillful in every craft." Okay, all right. I like to build shelves and things. And then Aphrodite said, "If you give the apple to me, I will give you Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world." And Paris says, "Sold. I'll take the lady. Give me the lady, I'll take the lady." And so she does. Aphrodite steals Helen away from Menelaus, her husband, and gives her to Paris. Paris takes her to Troy, and that's where we start. So, Achilles is weak in his heel. Why is he weak in his heel? Well, because Achilles is not a full god. He's half god, right? Thetis, his mother, was a nymph. She was not a goddess. She was a sprite. She was a magical, like, fairy thing. And she knew that her son Achilles was vulnerable to death because he wasn't a god, and that really upset her. So what she did was she took him to the underworld, and she dipped him into the river Styx. And the waters of the river Styx made him impervious to harm, but she wasn't able to dip his entire body in because if she had, he would have died. He's not a god. And so the waters would have killed him outright if she had dipped his entire body. So what she did, she held him by his ankle upside down and dipped him in the water that way. So that's why his ankle is susceptible, is weak to damage. Here's the river Styx there. Mistake. Okay, mistake. All right. I have to skip some of these. So here's Troy. So this is the map I was talking about. It controls, if you look, this very small, very narrow strait of water into the Sea of Marmara, into the Black Sea. That's incredibly important from a trade and travel and shipping standpoint. Very, very wealthy city if you can control that strait. And that's what Troy was. Yeah, okay. Look at this. This is really cool. So we can see all the different versions of Troy throughout the years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So six. This is probably the Troy that we're talking about in the myth. This is what it might have looked like. Pretty big city. I mean, you're using horse-drawn chariots and arrows and swords and shields. How did you get in there? I have no clue. You can't get in there. There's no chance. No chance. Achilles, his name comes from Akos and Elaus, grief of the people. Okay, grief of the people. He was the greatest Greek warrior in the Trojan War. His army, the Myrmidons, were created from a legion of ants, colony of ants, Myrmex, meaning ant in Greek. And he was invulnerable except for his heel. Hector on the other side, Hector is kind of his foil, right? His equal on the other side, even though Hector was simply a man. Hector was not a god at all. But he was the greatest Trojan warrior. And I would argue that Hector is a much more sympathetic, a much more admirable and honorable character in this myth than even Achilles is. Achilles gets a little carried away with himself later on. So much so that he makes peace once he realizes it's his time, that he's not going to make it out of his battle with Achilles. He makes peace with it. He goes quietly. He doesn't make a big fuss out of it. Paris is the cowardly Trojan warrior. He actually kills Achilles in the epilogue of this myth. We learn that Achilles, with Apollo's help, Paris kills Achilles by shooting him in the heel with an arrow. All right, chapter 1. All right, so this is Briseis being taken from Achilles. So I told you that Agamemnon takes Achilles' prize of honor, or one of his women, right? So we have to remember this was ancient Greece, and women were often just used as treasure, as spoils of war, unfortunately. So, okay, yeah, who started it? Well, Aphrodite started it. Achilles tries to talk some reason into Agamemnon, and Agamemnon says, "Nah, I don't like the way you're talking to me. I'm the king, and you don't know what you're talking about." So let's see here. Yeah. So this is Achilles talking to Agamemnon. "You drunkard! You with the face of a dog, but the heart of a deer. You will never be brave enough to arm yourself for battle with your countrymen, or to take part in an ambush with the other Greek kings." So Agamemnon orders Briseis to be taken from Achilles. Achilles pleads with his mother to petition Zeus for help with the whole situation. Zeus is like, nah, I'm okay. I'm all right. What Zeus says here, "You are making my life with Hera more difficult by asking this of me." Remember, Hera is Zeus's wife. "She already complains that I have given the Trojans too much help in battle, yet I will do as you wish." So, yeah, so what he does here, what Zeus does here, is he sends a false prophecy to Agamemnon, saying basically, if you go and attack Troy, you will be victorious. So he is eventually victorious, but it takes a lot longer and a lot more complicated than you think it will be. All right. skip that. Paris and Menelaus agree to fight one-on-one. Basically, what happens here is they have a chance to diffuse the war before it even starts. They don't have to do the war, right? Paris and Menelaus agree to battle one-on-one, and whoever wins gets to take Helen. So we could have avoided this whole mess, but the gods didn't think that was fun enough. So, I think it's Apollo. Where is it? Yeah, here we go. Hera and Athena were still angry with Paris for choosing Aphrodite's beauty over their own. This meant that Zeus could keep his word to Thetis without offending them, and the immortals agreed that Athena should cause the battle to resume. So it's done. It's over. It's over. Here, this is Agamemnon. Hear me, all you Trojans and your allies. Obviously, Menelaus has won the duel, so return Helen and her treasure to her rightful husband. Compensate the Greeks for Paris's offense, and we'll be done. We'll be through with this. We don't have to worry about this. No more bloodshed. No more fighting. And the gods are like, nah, but we wanted to show. We wanted to show. So Athena goes down to the Trojan Pandarus and says, why don't you shoot Menelaus with one of your arrows? Then you will win fame and honor in the eyes of all the Trojans, especially Paris. He will surely reward you most handsomely for killing Athena's most war-loving son. So Pandarus, this guy right here, says, yeah, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that. He fails. He doesn't kill Menelaus, but that does start the war. It triggers the war, and now we're in full war mode. We get a little bit about Helen's point of view here, and I thought it was interesting here. Listen to this. I wish that on the day I was born, a great storm wind had carried me away to some lonely mountainside, or to the shore of the loud-sounding sea where the waves would have washed me away, for then this hateful war never would have occurred. Or considering that the deathless gods determined these events, I wish that they had married me to a better man than Paris, one who could feel the anger and hatred of his family and his people. Paris will never change, so I fear that he will reap the bitter fruit of the seeds he has sown. But come and sit down, dear Hector. She's talking to Hector. So I thought that was fascinating. Helen doesn't want to be here. Helen says, I wish none of this happened. I wish I was born somewhere else and none of this ever happened, because this is crazy. Okay. So all this time, Achilles is nowhere to be found. Achilles refuses to participate in the war for 9 years. And the reason for that is that Achilles he's just mad. He's just angry at Agamemnon for taking Briseis away and for insulting him. And after 9 years, eventually the counselors, the advisors for Agamemnon finally convince him to apologize, to try to get Achilles to come and turn the tide of battle, to fight for them. He offers vast riches to Achilles, and Achilles says, nah. And Achilles says that no, I'm not going to help. There's nothing that Agamemnon can offer me that would change my mind. He's just going to have to lose this war on his own. But eventually something happens that gets Achilles off his butt. So right here, he's talking to Ajax, his old friend Ajax. So return with my message. I will not join the fighting until Hector brings fire to my own ships, and there I will stop him. So he says, basically, until it affects me, I'm not going to do nothing. I'm not going to help you out until I feel the burn. So there was a prophecy, right? So there is prophecy a few times in this myth. And his mother's prophecy is that if he fights in this war, he will die. If he fights in this war, he will die. which does eventually happen, unfortunately. So Patroclus, he and Achilles come up with a plan, right? So the first part of their plan goes great. What happens is Patroclus puts on Achilles' armor. He decks himself out in Achilles' armor to make him look like Achilles. He's going to fool the people on the battlefield, and it works. Patroclus goes out in the battlefield, and he starts kicking butt, and he starts slaying dudes, and they're like, oh no, Achilles is here, we're so afraid, because he's so powerful. And eventually it fails, right? Because somebody comes out to meet him head to head and slays him. And who is that? Hector. That is Hector. Man-slaying Hector. One of the things I really like about this myth is that these characters are given interesting names. Like, it's not just Hector. It's not just Hermes. It's the fleet-footed Hermes. It's the shining, shielded Achilles. It's the man-slaying Hector. Approached and drove his spear clear through Patroclus' stomach. Just as a mountain lion overpowers a mighty boar when the two fight upon a mountaintop for the right to drink from a little spring, so did Hector, godlike son of Priam, end good Patroclus' life. So, Achilles hears about this and doesn't take it well. He says, that's it. It has now affected me personally, and I'm going to go get my revenge. I'm going to go slay some dudes. Top of 146. So Hector makes this decision here that ultimately leads to his death. He says, He says here, Polydamas, your words do not please my heart. Are you not tired of being confined within walls? I will not permit any Trojan to listen to you. We will fight the bronze-coated Greeks at their hollow ships. If Achilles enters the battle, I will fight him face to face, and one of us will win great glory. If we remember, the first thing that Achilles said would finally get him into the battle was, if the Trojans come to their ships, then he'll... Well, now he has a different reason because his friend has died. Now, let's skip that one. So, they have a battle. Hector and Achilles. And Athena, again, Athena is really tricky here. Let's see, this is on page 148. Let's see here. Athena went down to Achilles and said, Great Achilles, dear to Zeus, now we will kill Hector. He can no longer escape from us no matter what Apollo may do to try to save him. Rest here while I persuade the son of Priam to fight you face to face. So Athena goes to Achilles. No, I'm sorry. She goes to Hector. She appeared before Hector in the form and in the voice of his dearest brother Deiphobos. Dear brother, she cried, let us stand here together and deal with Achilles as he deserves. So Athena lies to Hector. She makes him think that his brother is there to fight with him and then vanishes. So Hector has to fight Achilles on his own, which he has no chance of doing. Eventually, Hector comes to a realization. It is true that our father... No, that's the goddess. So this is Hector approaching Achilles. I will no longer run from you, Achilles, but will fight you man to man until one of us has taken the life of the other. I will treat you fairly if Zeus gives me the strength to slay you. Once I have removed your splendid armor, I will return your dead body to your countrymen, and I will want you to promise to do the same. Yeah, Achilles doesn't agree to do that. Achilles wins the battle, and instead of returning the body out of respect to Priam, he ties it to the back of his chariot and then drags it around the city as a celebration. Now, one thing about that. Chapter 8. So Andromache learns about Hector's death by seeing it his body being dragged around the city. So that's not great. And then here, here is it. Apollo Apollo actually protects. Remember, there are gods on each side of this battle, and Apollo is on the Trojan side. And so Apollo is protecting the body of Hector so that it's not desecrated, it's not torn up, it's not damaged by what Achilles is doing here. And then Priam comes to ask for Hector's body, and Achilles says, nah, I'm going to keep it. I'm good. I'll hang on to it. And the end. So eventually Achilles is killed by Paris. Apollo is the one who helps him that. We can see this is Achilles. This is this is Paris. This is Achilles here. And this is Apollo helping him guide the arrow. Helen, so very, very, very end, the last paragraph. Menelaus killed Deiphobos and recovered Helen. The women in Hector's family became enslaved, as he had known would be their fate if Troy lost the war. The greatest Greek warriors were entitled to special prizes of honor, which now were the greatest of the Trojan women. Yeah, not that great. And we even get an explanation as to why the Trojans accepted the wooden horse. It's because it seems strange that they would accept the wooden horse. It seems very suspicious, but there was a reason for that. And the reason is, actually, if we read the Aeneid, we're not reading the Aeneid in this class, but if you read the Aeneid, there's a little bit of a longer explanation for that. The Greeks left the horse outside the walls of Troy and hid on a nearby island. The Trojans were suspicious of the horse, but when two serpents attacked the priest of Apollo, who had warned against accepting a Greek gift, they took it inside. They were certain that the war had finally ended, and they celebrated their great victory. Well, we all know what happened. They were Greeks hiding inside the horse. They popped out and destroyed the city. And I like this last question here. Who are the good guys? I don't think there are any good guys. I think Hector is the only honorable, admirable character in this whole thing. All right. So, again, I'm sorry I had to rush through that so fast. It's hour 16. That's so much. Sorry, I went so fast. Each one of those was supposed to be like an hour class, like a 2-hour class that we have long discussions and conversations about things, and we're not able to do that. And so I don't like this format. I think I made that clear. I don't like this format, but we're doing the best that we can. Now, let's look here real quick before I let you go. Again, we're in week 4. This coming week, starting today, we're in week 4, which means we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks remaining. Right? The semester ends December 18th right here, I think. It's the 11th or the 18th? Hang on. If we're here, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know. It ends over there somewhere. Whatever. It ends sometime in December. So, if you haven't thought about beginning your paper and or creative project, now is the time to do so. Yes? Look at this. Look at this. I'm going to remind you a couple times again before the end of the semester. This is due at the end of the semester, and it's worth a bunch of points, so don't neglect it. Don't just forget about it. Don't refuse to do it. This is important. 3 to 5 pages, not too long. 3 outside sources. One of those can be the book. If you want to use your book as one of those outside sources, that's perfectly fine. And then one of these topics, or if you have a better idea as far as topics go, that's fine. Just pitch it to me. Just run it by me first, and it's probably fine. Okay? So let's get our quizzes taken. Let's look real quick. Quiz 1. So we have 7 people have taken quiz 1 so far. No, 8. I'm sorry, 8 total people. So we need to start making these quizzes. We need to start taking these quizzes. What I don't want you to do is wait until November 20th and then do 4 quizzes in a row. That's not going to get you the best points. Not going to get you the best grades. The best way to do these is to read these myths and then watch my videos if you have time. I know they're long. Read the myths, read through my PowerPoint presentations that are on Moodle, and then take each quiz as you go. That's the best way to do it. You're going to have the best chance for a good grade if you do it that way. All right? That's my cat who wants out of the room. So that's it. That's all I got for you. Look for another video about Medea and Pyramus and Thisbe this week. I'm going to say, I can't promise tomorrow, but maybe tomorrow, probably Tuesday. I will definitely have the Medea video out no later than Wednesday, for sure. For sure. No, fingers crossed. No, fingers crossed, for sure. I'll have it done by Wednesday. All right, so thanks for listening. Sorry it was so long, but I'll see you next time.